We've gone over the different ways to animate an element. You can use either CSS or JavaScript. You can even use both if need be. Vue is very flexible. It's one of the main reasons why developers love the framework so much. You can accomplish the same thing in different ways. It's entirely up to you. Although we've learned the different ways to animate an element, we haven't gone over how to animate a list. So far, we've been animating a single item or a group of items under a conditional directive. What if you wanted to animate a list? You may want to remove things from a list and add things to a list. That's simple enough to do. You already have the knowledge to accomplish something like that. The moment you add animations into the mix, things can get tricky. We can't use the transition component to animate lists. The transition component only works with single elements. If you want to animate a list of items, you'll need to use a different component. I'll talk about that special component in a moment, but first, let's create a list. Inside the app component, we're going to create a new data property. We'll call it numbers. It'll be assigned to an array. We'll put the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to output this list of numbers. You don't have to use numbers. You can use any example you can think of for a list. I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. Let's output the list of numbers. Scrolling up to the template block, we're going to comment out the transition component we created in the previous lecture. We don't want it to get in our way. Next, at the bottom of the template block, we'll create an unordered list element. We'll apply the v-for directive to the list item element. The expression will be number in numbers. The alias, number, will represent the value in the current iteration. We'll output the number on each iteration. Inside the element, we'll add an expression for the number alias. We'll also bind the key attribute to the number as well. Remember that the key attribute will help Vue identify which item in the array belongs to which element. It'll help us from running into strange bugs when making changes to the list. Before we continue, we're going to change the font size of the list to 22 pixels inside the style block. It'll make things easier to view. We're also going to set the pointer to cursor. We're going to make it so that the user can delete list items by clicking on them. Setting the cursor to a different icon will indicate that they can do so. This is more of a visual decision rather than a view-related one. The next steps are to add an item to the list and remove them when clicked. We'll start with adding numbers. Above the unordered list element, we're going to add a button. We'll listen for a click event on the button. If a click is registered, we'll call the function addItem. This function doesn't exist. We'll have to define it in the methods object of the component. We're going to need two things. First, we need the number to add. Secondly, we're going to need to figure out where to insert the number in the array. We could add it to the end of the list and call it a day. But let's make it challenging by randomizing where the number will be inserted. We'll start by calculating the number to add to the list. We're going to create a variable called num. We'll set it to math.floor, math.random, asterisk 100 plus 1. This expression will generate a random number between 1 and 100. Next, we'll calculate an index. We'll create a variable called index. We'll set it to math.floor, math.random, asterisk this.numbers.length. This algorithm will randomly select an index inside the array. We'll insert the number to whatever this results in. From here, we can run the splice function on the numbers data property. The splice function can remove values, but we don't want to do that. It's possible to insert values into an array with it. We'll set the first two arguments to index and 0, respectively. The third parameter will be the value we'd like to insert, which will be num. This function will push a number into the array. Let's work on removing the value. In order to remove the value, we'll need the index. Without the index, we won't know which number to remove. Therefore, we'll need to update the expression inside the v-for directive. We'll wrap the first half of this expression in parentheses. This additional syntax is necessary if we want to extract the index. The alias for the index will be index. I know it's been a while since we've had to do this, so let me give you a refresher. You can grab the index of the current iteration by defining it inside these parentheses. The second value is the alias name for the index. We're plainly naming it index. With the index in hand, we can add a click event listener to the list item. We'll call the function removeItem and pass in the index. Next, we'll need to define the function inside the methods object. Inside the function, we'll call the splice function. This time we'll pass in the index we're provided. The number of items to remove is 1. We aren't going to use the third parameter because we aren't trying to add anything to the array. This function should remove whatever item was clicked on in the list. We're finished with writing the function. Let's give things a test. On the page, we will continue to see the same 5 numbers. Clicking on the button will result in a new number added to the list. The number should be random. It will appear in a random location. Adding numbers works fine. Let's test the removal of the numbers. Clicking on any number will result in its removal. This is great. It works as we wanted it to. Now we can begin animating them. I want to animate numbers fading in or out, depending on the action. Back inside the template, we're going to wrap the list tag with a transition group component. You can't use the transition component because it doesn't work with list items. The transition group component is specifically for animating items in a loop. There are not many differences between transition and transition group components. It has the same properties and hooks. It has the enter and leave hooks. You can apply the same set of CSS and JavaScript animations if you wish. One important difference is that you can't set the mode property. You can't set the mode to out-in or in-out. Other than that, we should be fine. We're going to reuse an animation we've defined already. We're going to set the name attribute to fade. The animation we're using will fade the elements in or out based on the action being performed. We don't have to worry about creating the CSS styles because we've already done that in an earlier lecture. Time for another test. We'll refresh the page, which will give us a fresh list. If we were to click on the button, then a new number is generated. It's added onto the list in a random location. The best part is that it animates in. It properly fades in like we want it to. We can even click on any of the list items. The correct item will fade away before being removed. We've got a working solution, but it isn't perfect. We'll discuss the problem in the next lecture.